day job, I'm the president of the Canadian Climate Institute, so we're the biggest climate change research organization in Canada. Wow. Thank you. In my off hours for many years, I have written about, researched toxic chemicals. My wife says I'm a real hoot at a dinner party because I can move seamlessly between my two great loves, the terrors of climate change and the horror of chemical pollution. But for many years, I've worked on pollution issues, air pollution, toxic pollution, climate changing pollution. There's something about the repeated pattern we've seen since the Industrial Revolution that I find fascinating. So the creation of new types of pollution, the discovery of the problem, and then the dispute over how to solve that problem. And if there's one lesson we can take from humanity's continuing struggles with pollution, it is this. Environmental arguments aren't enough. They're too distant, they're too abstract, people can't wrap their arms around it. Pollution problems only really get solved when they become seen as threats to human health, to quality of life, and when we remember that, when we put humans at the center of our arguments, we win. 17 years ago, I wrote a book called Slow Death by Rubber Duck. The topic of that book is the tens of thousands of chemicals in common consumer products and the consequences of daily human exposure to those chemicals. For the book, my co-author and I made ourselves into giant guinea pigs in order to tell the story. We experimented on ourselves. We used certain types of common consumer items, and then we measured chemical levels in our body before and after using those products. So here's an example of one experiment we did 17 years ago. So every baby bottle in the world at the time was made out of the hormonally active chemical called BPA. I started drinking my morning coffee out of my son's BPA baby bottle. And I took the nipple off first. Just wanted to dispel that disturbing mental image. But the punchline is that after a week of doing this, my body levels of BPA shot up by over 6 times. So as I was using that bottle, that chemical was leaching out of that product and into my body. The book and the work that we did in Canada at the time had a great impact. We convinced the Canadian government, which is a conservative government at the time, actually, to ban certain dangerous chemicals. And as a result, a decade later, we see BPA levels have actually declined in the bodies of Canadians by almost 50%. Good news here in California, other jurisdictions around the world that have made similar improvements to laws and regulation. We see levels of some chemicals down in the bodies of people. Other changes since our book came out, not so positive. And so I'm talking here, of course, about the explosion in plastics. I had an epiphany, a terrible epiphany the other day, which is that if you look at all the plastics ever created by humans, over half was made since my book came out in 2008. Just an unbelievable acceleration. And so to dig into this newest pollution crisis, I produced a documentary last year called Plastic People. Thank you. And in this documentary, we travel the world. We tried to look at the link between plastic pollution and human health. And we dug into this new, very disturbing science on microplastics in the human body. This evidence has only grown much stronger over the last year since our film came out, and it's now clear. New studies tell us that the microplastics are in every nook and cranny of the human body, in our bones, in our organs, in our brains. This little piece of plastic on the right is from the film, the first recorded instance of microplastics in the human brain. There's now many studies showing this. I'm convinced that this new science that strengthens by the day is a game changer. I don't care how clever the justifications of the plastic industry are. When it becomes clear to people that there are measurable and increasing levels of microplastics in the placentas of our wives and our sisters and our daughters, in the bloodstream of our kids, and the human health impact this is having, that is the kind of argument that's impossible to ignore. the kind of personal argument that drives change forward. Coming back to my day job, climate change, I'm convinced that this new science is a game changer for climate change as well. Plastics are petrochemicals. They're oil and gas in solid form, and the oil and gas industry sees the writing on the wall, knows that we're not going to be burning their product in our cars 20 years from now, and so is busily trying to crank up plastics around the world as a way of soaking up that excess oil and gas production. Plastic is already today a significant contributor to greenhouse gas emissions, and if current trends continue, will be an even bigger contributor in the future. If there's one silver lining, maybe the only silver lining, of this difficult political period we're in, where it feels like a lot of the progress we've made together is under threat, it's challenging us to get better with our arguments and our tactics. And up until now, and I say this as a climate change advocate, up until now, a lot of the solutions on the table for climate change have been kind of clever policy prescriptions that don't really make a lot of sense to most people. So measuring progress in terms of parts per million carbon in the atmosphere by the year 2100, or hard to explain emission reduction targets don't have a lot of, they're not really cutting it. And so climate change advocates increasingly we're focusing our arguments closer to home. We're trying to highlight the link between climate change and what people are experiencing every day. The terrible wildfires and flooding that are impacting California and my country and communities all around the world that are getting worse. We're showing that electric vehicles and heat pumps, in addition to reducing emissions, are just a better deal for consumers. They're more cost effective, they're just better machines. We know what that feels like in transitions when machines just get better and more useful for our quality of life. And now we have the scientific basis, based on this science, to draw a direct link between oil and gas and petrochemicals and the climate-changing pollution they create and the toxic microplastic particles in the bodies of your family and my family and everyone else on Earth. So I think that solving the plastic pollution crisis by 2040 is not only going to reduce our chemical exposure, it's going to reduce climate-changing pollution as well. It's going to make all of us healthier and safer. And that is the kind of gut-level, people-centered argument that we need to lean into in the next months and years. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch is inside of us, and it's time to start cleaning that up. Thank you so much.